Right, thanks for attending. We have got quite a few more people still to go into the room, so they might filter through at some point, but we'll crack on, and they can catch up as and when. Welcome along to another Lunch and Learn. As people know, we hold these every single month, talk through specific topics. We've been doing a lot of search stuff recently. It seems to be quite hot on our agenda at the moment, but we talk through specific topics. We just give you some advice, some tips, some actionable content that you can. We've just had our cat running. He disappeared this morning. He never goes out, but he's just legged it back in. So apologies if the dog goes mad now. Yeah, we give you actionable advice that you can hopefully chuck into your own business and make use of. I always say if you can go away with one thing that changes how you do things or helps to impact your business, then that's our job done. I'm Dave. I set up 146 13 years ago. I think it was. There's a dog going by. This is the problem with working from home when you've had COVID. I set up 146 about 13 years ago, and we've been doing Lunch and Learn for 6 or 7 years, sometimes in person, more recently since COVID online. We did at one point get 70 odd people into our room for one event. So it was really well attended. This one was supposed to be well attended. We haven't got as many as actually come into the room, but hopefully they'll watch it on repeat. Yes, we've been doing this for quite a while now. And I am joined in the room with Rebecca. Rebecca, introduce yourself. Different colour hair today.
I'm Becca. I work for 146. I do a lot of our in-house marketing, and I also have some clients I look after in different industries. I do a bit of everything: socials, SEO. I help Dave with websites. Just look after people in a range of industries, and I help do the lunch and learns as well.
Thank you, Bex. And yeah, Tracy, to answer your question, why is it 146? It's 146 days from the start of the year to my birthday. That's it. Really bad. It's
so inventive.
The story comes from when I set up the business. I was sat in Birmingham. I just resigned from a job. Sat in Birmingham, and I said to my dad, I need a name for an agency that I'm going to set up. And what type do you want? And I said, well, I'd worked previously with a lot of agencies like 13 Digital and 28 Digital and stuff like that. And he said, what about 146? And he explained why, and we stuck with it. So that's why we chose 146. Anyway, so today we are going to be, let me talk about Cynthia Spencer first of all. Every Lunch and Learn we do, we try and support Cynthia Spencer, even if it's just to shout out about the great work they do, because they do some fantastic work. At the end of this call, you'll get an email. This event is totally free. There's no catches, but if you did want to donate what would be a ticket fee of whatever, choose a figure, you can do. We don't hold people to it. We don't check, but it's just there if people want to. But we like to support Cynthia Spencer. Right. So today's topic is all about optimizing your web content for search. Over the last few months, we didn't hold one last month because I was away, but over the last few months, we've done a lot of work around SEO. And the first one we did in February, maybe, was around the different elements of search. I think we said there were 7. I think we actually expanded it on the call to 8. 8 different elements of search that were really important for you and your business. And now we're delving into each one. And today we're looking at optimizing your web content for search. So the content that already exists, how can you optimize it? Why should you optimize it? What can you do? What benefits it's going to have? We're going to be delving into that today. But before we start, now, when we did our Lunch and Learn back in, I think it was February, and we talked through those 7 or 8 different points. There were almost 4 fundamental points to generate a high-performing website, and I wanted to almost kind of set the scene, lay the groundwork before we kind of jump onto this, kind of jump into this one area of optimizing content, because today is all about content. And I want to talk about the 4 kind of absolute fundamentals, and I'm going to get them up on screen, not on your screen, on my screen, because I couldn't remember them. So much going through my head today. So 4 absolute fundamentals, kind of broken down from those 8. These are the 4 you need to think about. First of all, having a technically sound site. Now we've got Paul Drake in the room. He runs White Star. He produces websites. And so Paul will know all about producing a technically sound site, making sure it's quick, making sure it's mobile responsive, making sure there's no errors, 404 errors. There's making sure the images aren't huge. There's loads of little nitty gritty things that go into making sure you've got a technically sound site. That's fundamental point number one for a high performing website. Number two is making sure there's lots of optimized, relevant content. And let's break that down. Lots of. And it's really important to have lots of content. That's not the most important thing in that sentence. Well-optimized, relevant content is the most important thing in that. Content that's relevant to the user. Content that is going to add value to them. It's going to answer a question. And well-optimized is the stuff we're covering off today. How can we do that? Why is it relevant? We'll cover that off today. But having lots of well-optimized, relevant content is point number two. It's the second fundamental point of having a high-performing website. Number three, which we will come on to in a future Lunch and Learn, is links, links, and more links. If I was to break these four things down into two key points, it's all about content, it's all about links. They're the two fundamentals. But it does expand out further than that. Technically sound site. Lots of well-optimized, relevant content, links, links, and more links. These are links coming into your site from other websites. And number four is the trust factor. Now, links help to encourage and promote the trust factor with Google. It shows that you're a trusted domain. But what I mean by the trust factor is Google reviews, Trustpilot reviews, Facebook reviews. Google reviews are the core there. Making sure you're active on social, that shows that you're trusted, it shows that you're relevant, it shows that you're active. But for me, it's all about Google reviews. So there are four fundamentals, just kind of lays the groundwork for us there. Having a technically sound site, lots of well-optimized relevant content, links, links, and more links, and the trust factor. There are four absolute fundamentals for a high-performing site. And the one we're covering off today is about having lots of well-optimized relevant content. So what is content optimization? Okay, right. I'm actually gonna read this because I think it's, when it comes to defining things, I think it's quite important to be quite specific. So if I look on Google, there's something here that says, and I'm reading from a tablet, if you don't mind, content optimization is the process of refining and enhancing digital content to improve its visibility, engagement, and effectiveness. The process involves ensuring content quality, including keywords, writing compelling titles and meta descriptions, and earning authoritative backlinks. That is what content optimization is, okay? It really is, it's making sure your content is built in such a way that it gets seen. That's all it is. But more importantly, why is it important? So you build content to get seen, whether that's on social media, whether that's on search. And what I would add here is, I know that we're talking quite heavily about what we do in search, how you get found on Google, but not every business is going to benefit from Google. We benefit from Google quite a lot. Paul, I know you could benefit from Google quite. In fact, I think everyone in the room could. But certain services you provide and certain businesses as a whole won't necessarily benefit very well from Google. There's some businesses where, yes, having a website is great, crucial in some aspects, but focusing on social content, as an example, might be better for them. There's some businesses where running lead generation campaigns through ads, whether that's on social, Google Ads, whatever that might be, is more important. Search isn't the be-all and end-all for everyone, and search is becoming more and more difficult to achieve the kind of results you need to achieve. So just take that into account. But why is content optimization important? Getting eyes on your content is the only reason why you produce content. Because if that isn't your reason for producing content, then why would you produce content? Whether it's social content, blog content, content around a particular service, product, guides, article, whatever it might be on your website, getting eyes on it is the most important thing. And if you're trying to get eyes on it through search, you have to make sure it's optimized. Because if it's not optimized, you're going to find it's less likely that you'll get eyes on it. But also, if you're trying to get eyes on it through socials, having having well optimized page titles, meta descriptions, having good imagery, alt text, that's all important as well, because that kind of stuff feeds through to socials. So that's going to give the people who are seeing your content on social a decision to make. Is this content worth visiting, or shall I just let it pass me by? And it's the titles, it's the metas, it's the images, it's all of that stuff that will help make that user's decision as to whether they want to view that content. So optimizing it for Google and social is important. You may find as well that if you've got content that's live, because we're not talking today just about content that you're about to send live or you're going to send live in the future and about optimizing that, but you might have content on your website that's live at the moment, isn't getting eyes on it. And so going through and optimizing that and going through some of the stuff we talked through today, and we're going to go through a guide today that we've produced. Going through that is going to be important as well, because if, for example, the content you've got on your website isn't getting eyes on, then it might be that the content you've got includes keywords that just aren't relevant. You may not have covered the topic in much detail. You may not have a coherent structure. And we'll talk through the structure at the moment. There might be a number of different reasons as to why you're not getting eyes on that content. And that's why optimizing this content is absolutely crucial. Because if you don't optimize it, you won't get eyes on it. And if you don't get eyes on it, you've wasted your time. It really is that simple. So we've covered off what is content optimization, and we've covered off why it's important. Now, as I said, we're going to come on to a bit of a guide and almost a process we go through as a company for us and for any clients that we work with when we produce any content. And we'll go through that in a short while, but I want to go through two kind of key points, first of all, before we do that. The first point I want to go through, excuse me, as I said, I've had COVID this week, so I might be coughing and spluttering a little bit, although coughing wasn't one of the key symptoms, weirdly enough. All right, so 2 seconds. I'm just going to bring up some of my notes. So one of the first things I'm going to do is talk through the makeup, the structure of a good page or blog. And this is the technical structure. And this is what every single page and every single blog on your website should have. And Paul from White Stars in the room, Paul, you'll know this. But it's good to revisit this kind of stuff, because a lot of web developers, they will not necessarily forget this, but forget almost let the basics just pass them by a little bit. And these are real basics. It's about your header text, it's about your alt text, it's about your title, it's about your meta description. But having all of that stuff in line, and by having those kind of basics and following that kind of basic structure of what I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this, and considering all of that, you're setting your page up and your blog up to be seen as a well-optimized piece of content. So in terms of the makeup of a good page or blog, the structure of a good page or blog, I'll take through some of the things you need to consider. So first of all, you need a title. Okay, so if you're using WordPress, this is when you set up the page or the blog, this is the title of the page or the blog. The first thing you put in, what's that called? And it needs to be well optimized. You need to be answering the question. It needs to be, or it needs to be clear about what that content is offering. You need to make sure you have keywords in there, but don't keyword stuff. We'll talk about keywords shortly. But that page title needs to be quite concise. You don't want it to be too long. You don't want it to be too short either. Depending on what it is. If you're producing a blog, let's say your blog is around, I don't know, Rebecca, give me a blog question that we might put out there. There you go, optimizing your web content for search. There we go.
Yeah, that's good.
That's a great blog title. What you don't want to do is you don't want to call it web content search.
No, and in fact, the name of our webinar is web content for search, but after doing research on it, I'm probably going to use the word SEO in the title for the blog,
Yeah.
Because SEO gets higher searches than search term. So
And your research
um,
there, you've identified something that needs to change. You're going to
yeah, I
change.
came across that in my research for writing the blog. So yeah, the title, I've had to put different thought into how I'm going to do the title for SEO purposes to make it easier to find for people who are using search terms that are more relevant to them. So
What we could
this, an
also do,
example.
what we could also do is change it to how to optimize your web content for SEO.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Because adding in things like how to, they're the typical questions that people would ask on Google. So
Yeah,
would kind of conform a bit better. So think about your page title and how that comes across to the user. The second thing is your meta description. This is your meta description. If you use WordPress, this is something you might find in Yoast, for example. There's other Rank SEO. There's other plugins that you might be using. But the meta description is basically when you type something into Google, it's a short snippet that displays below the link on Google, and it gives Google an overview as to what that page is about. Make sure it's filled out. Make sure it's simple, clear, concise, gets your message across. Similar to your page title, you need it to be descriptive. You don't want to flood it with keywords, but you want it to be fairly descriptive, fairly obvious as to what that page is about. So for us, if we're going, our page title is how to optimize your web content for SEO. The meta description might be, and I haven't done research on this personally, but it might be something like, are you looking to, do you want to know how to optimize your web content for SEO? Question mark. Find out more about optimizing the content on your website in our latest blog. It's very simple, very clear. Don't make it too long. When you look on things like Yoast, it will give you a figure as to how many characters you can use. I can't remember the exact figure now. 100 and something odd.
Or 165.
It was 165 or something. I can't remember.
150.
My mind's like a sieve.
150.
But again, it needs to be optimized. And then when we talk about optimize, it's about making sure that every part of that page is just it's descriptive. It is kind of sells that section of that page better than it previously was. It's just created better.
Yeah, basically saying it's like it does what it says on the tin. The meta description is to say, when you click on this link, this is what you're going to get. A complete guide to website optimization, something like that, for people to read and go, oh, well, that matches what the title says. That description is what I am expecting. And then when they click on the page, that's what they get.
Exactly. Next thing, you need to make sure you've got a well-structured, from a content perspective, your content well-structured throughout that page or blog. And that's where we come on to H1 text, H2 text, H3 text, all the way down to H6 text. You might not go all the way down to H6 text. Our go-tos are probably H1 to H4 text. But these are your different headers. And your first title across the top of the page, the first thing people see is going to be your H1 text. Make sure that's at the top of the screen. Then you'll typically have H1 text. Then you'll probably have content. Let's annotate this. Can you see this? So this would probably be your H1 text, and then you'd have. Can you see that, Bex?
Yep.
Cool. Then you'd have some text there. Further down the page, your next title would probably be H2 text. It'll probably look a bit smaller. Then you have some more content. Then you might have, so if you're sectioning this off, so if we were sectioning off our blog around optimizing, how to optimize your web content for SEO, our H1 text would be how to optimize your web content for SEO. Our H2 text, our first bit of H2 text might be what is optimized content. Our next H2 text might be why is it important? But we don't want to just have why is it important. We want to make sure that's descriptive. So why is optimizing your content for SEO important? So again, be descriptive. Don't just go why is it important. Make sure you get some of those keywords in there, but naturally that's absolutely key. And then when I come down to things of the makeup of a good page or blog, however we kind of describe that as header text. Below that, when we kind of delve into your the different things like your title, your meta, your H1, H2, etc., etc., we might do that as a bullet point list, or we might do it as H3 text. So go through and structure your content. One H1 title, don't do any more than that. Your next main titles are H2 by default, and anything under your H2. So if you've got a section that is then split up into different sections, you go down to H3 and H4 text, and you have content under that. Use bold text, use italic text where possible. Don't use it too much because it alters the user experience. Use lists where you can do, so bullet lists or numbered lists, and make sure you structure your content well. One of the crucial things there is make sure you've only got one H1 text and make sure it appears at the top of the page. So many websites we come across that they come to us and say, we're not performing search. And the very first thing we do is an audit, and we see straight away then they either haven't got H1 text, or they don't have that structure where it's H1 right at the top. So they might have 2 or 3 lots of H1 text further down. If you've got a sliding banner, it's almost by default, you might have 3 or 4 H1 tags. Make sure you've just got one. Make sure the most important thing is first and then go down to H2. And if you need to, Paul, you'll know this, typically the way we would style our kind of header text is our H1 text would be a certain size, our H2 text would be slightly smaller, H3 text would be even smaller. If you find that you've got, let's say, a scrolling banner, your H1 text is on the first one, and then you want it to be a consistent size, just style it differently. That's all you need to do. But just make sure it's tagged as H1 as your first one, then numerous H2, and then H3, H4. So having a good structure is important. Making sure you've got your keywords distributed evenly across your content, whether that's on your titles, your alt text, I'll come on to that in a second, within your content itself, and making sure that you don't just keyword flood. Use relevant keywords. Work out what your keywords are. We're going to come on to keywords shortly. Work out what they are. Find some relevant or relatable keywords and utilize them across your content as well. And make sure you, when it comes to any other different media, whether it's images or videos, so with images, fill out your alt text, describe what that image is all about. With your images, make sure there's a description. When you upload to YouTube, make sure there's a description on YouTube as to what that video is all about. And that will help as well. Different media helps to keep people on a page and helps people to engage with the page better as well. So consider what your images look like. If you have the opportunity to create some really cool imagery, spend some time doing that. Rather than using stock imagery. If you've got time to create some really cool video, spend some time doing that, because it will, by having stuff that will keep people on a web page and get people to engage with the web page, that will have a positive effect on Google, because one of the ranking signals Google considers is how long people stay on a website for. So if they are hitting your website and navigating straight off, it's a negative. If they're hitting your website, staying on it and actually reading through the content and engaging with it, that's a positive. Google will rank you higher. Google is a very simple beast. You know, their algorithm aside, which is bloody complicated, all they want is for the people who want to view your content to view your content, to find your content. If they think your content is the best on the web, they will display it. That's all it is. So make your content the best on the web. Make sure it's well optimized. So when it comes to the makeup of a good, or the structure of a good page or blog, like I said, consider your title, your meta description, your H1, H2, H3, etc. text, the keywords across your content, the content itself, and your alt text, and your video. Make sure it's all well optimized. And people forget that. A lot of people don't spend time on that. So if you're looking to almost get above your competition in search, make sure you do that, and it might actually have an impact. Right. Just keep an eye on time. Yeah, we're doing okay.
Would this be a good time to answer the question about writing content for location pages?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, why not? I'm just trying to find the question. So
I put it in the chat. It's near the top.
sorry, 2 seconds. I'm just having to come off my drawer thing. My little sketch is going to be there, I think, for a while. I'm just going to do that. Right. Question we had, it coming from Matt, I think. So regarding location pages for certain services, does it impact the effectiveness of the page if If you just copy and paste each page, but change the location, or should I change the content? If so, how much? So really good question. So Google hates duplicate content. So that should answer it straight away. If you're going to create location pages, which are a good thing, they can be hit and miss. You know, we've just gone through a process of one of our clients creating a whole heap of location pages, some of which perform really well on Google, some of which don't, some of which get traffic and are getting leads, some of which don't. So they can be hit and miss, but depending on your industry, it can be worthwhile doing. If you're going to do it, make sure all of your content is unique content. Go through and rewrite it. Now, you might want to utilize AI for that to make your life easier. All I would say with AI, and when you use ChatGPT, there's other stuff out there you can use. We only ever use it to plan and structure our content. We don't use it to necessarily write it. And if you do use it to write it, make sure it's heavily edited, because Google doesn't like AI content. You might think, same as me, how does it know? It will know just by the type of words, the sentence structure that it uses. You'll find that AI tends to churn out the same stuff. So if you do use it, make sure it's edited.
I recently came across a blog that I came across two blogs on the same topic that were almost exactly the same. I was doing some research for a client, and I came across a blog in America and a blog in the UK from two different websites, and they had the same blog, and it was so identical. It was shocking how identical it was. I actually couldn't get my head around it. I had them comparing them on two different screens, just looking at it like they're the same blog basically.
Yeah,
They hadn't edited it at all. They just put the question in, let AI write it, and then just took that as an individual piece of content.
that's the problem you have with AI. It's churning out the same stuff to everyone. So you need to be really careful with it, and Google doesn't like it. So, Matt, to answer your question, location pages are good depending on your industry and depending on whether it's relevant, but don't duplicate content. Right, follow-on question, Matt. Should I continue to create the location pages as landing pages or normal pages on WordPress Elementor? So we use Elementor for a lot of our stuff. Create location pages as landing page or normal pages. Do you mind, Matt, if you've got a microphone there, can I jump you into the call? Because this might be relevant for other people. So do you mind if I'm going to allow you to talk, and I'm going to ask you to unmute, and it's up to you whether or not you want to come on, and just talk me through that final follow-up question, if you don't mind. Cool. Cheers, Matt. Hi, Matt. So you've said, should I continue to create the location pages as landing pages or normal pages? Do you mind just clarifying that for me? Just want to.
Yeah, so on Elementor, I think when you go into templates, you can create landing pages, and that's how I'm kind of creating. So we've got services such as fire risk assessments, and then we're doing that for different locations. I think we've got like a list of 32 locations, and I've started creating them through the landing pages. But I'm just wondering, because a landing page is kind of where you kind of direct people to, and I want people to go on there and just find it organically, if I should kind of change it to normal pages.
I would probably do that. Yeah, I think the landing, we don't use a landing page as much in Elementor. They're more so used for things like ad campaigns and whatnot. So I would generate them all in your normal pages. Use the templates you've created. That's absolutely fine. I'd probably keep them off your menu structure. A great way to look at it is maybe put the locations in your footer. But I'd use them as normal pages in WordPress.
Yeah, that was kind of another follow-on. I've got all the locations in the footer, just like in the bottom right, under a section of find your area. I'm just wondering if that's the best way of kind of doing that as well.
Yeah, I'd say so. And if you have a top level kind of find your area page, where you talk about different things in different areas, and then you've got the links to each of those areas, that'll work quite well as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if this is kind of on topic, but I've just got another question about sitemaps.
Yes.
I've seen on a couple websites that they've got a page full of like links that's called sitemap. I'm just wondering how worth it is doing one of those kind of pages.
So have you got Yoast installed on your website?
Yes, I do.
The Yoast will automatically generate a sitemap. So if you were to go to your web address /sitemap .xml, you should bring up, I think it's sitemap.xml. you should bring up your sitemap. You can either, have you ever used Google Search Console?
Yeah.
So you can submit that, the link, under your sitemap section on Google Search Console, and it will give Google your site kind of access to your sitemap. They'll probably have access anyway, but it just means that, you know, I's are dotted, T's are crossed. It gives them easier access if they haven't got eyes on it. But you've probably already got one generated.
Okay. Okay. Brilliant. That helps. Thank you.
Cracking. Right. Thanks, Matt. I'll take you off the thingy if you don't mind. Right. So yeah, good questions there. Right. So we're going to jump onto it. I need to somehow remove this presentation. I don't know how to. Eraser. There we go. It's coming off. Right. Let's get that done, and then we can move on. Right. So the next thing I wanted to talk through was, so you've optimized the existing content, but optimizing it also kind of covers off making sure you have enough content there, because this is all about making sure your content ranks, it gets seen in search. So in order to get seen, our absolute go-to is making sure that content is the best on the web. Everything we do for a client is about ensuring that our content is the best on the web. And by doing that, you need to make sure you're covering off that topic, whether it's a service, a product, whether it's a question that's been asked, an article, a guide, whatever it might be. You need to make sure you're covering that topic off in enough depth. Now, one of the ways you can do this, little tip, which we're going to kind of go through at the end, but I'll say it now, is have a look at your competitors. And this isn't necessarily your fire and safety company down the road. This is your competitors in the search. So look at your content competitors. Look at who is appearing 1 to 3, 1 to 10 almost on Google. If you're trying to get on the first page of Google for a particular keyword, look at the content that is already appearing and make your content better. It really is that simple. Make your content better. Don't copy it, but use it as a benchmark and make it better. And some of the things that you can do is, first of all, making sure that you have more and better content. Now, one of the ways you can do that is by looking at your competitors. You might have your 10 content competitors on the first page of Google. They might all be talking about different things. So the first one might be covering off 3 points. The second one might be covering off those 3 points and another 2. The third one might be covering off a couple of those points and a further. Make sure you look at what they're doing and cover off all of those points in your own language. So look at your content competitors and do more and better content. You can also create offshoots of that content and create child pages. So, for example, one of the things we've done for one of our legal clients of late is when they talk about family law, there are so many different elements of family law, let's say 10 different aspects. We might look at child matters, we might look at the finances behind it, we might look at prenuptial agreements, and we would create child pages of each of those. If we then find one of those child pages has different elements of content that needs to be dealt with in a bit more detail, we might create another child page off the back of that. So have a look at whether there's any opportunities for kind of offshoots of content. The next thing you might want to do is create relevant articles. So if there's a particular thing that has a question. So one of our clients that we're building a website for at the moment is a mortgage and insurance broker. And on their existing website, when they were talking about protection and insurance, they talked about it. And then they had loads of content about why is life insurance important. And we kind of looked at it and we thought, well, that's a really relevant article. It's an article, screaming to me as an article. Why not take that off, put it into another article? We improve the user experience for that web page because there's not loads of content that's relevant in a way, but it's kind of answering a question. On that particular page about life insurance and protection, we want to talk about the service and the offering, and then we want to link to other articles. Find ways that you can produce and link to other articles within that content. And you start to create almost this web of content. FAQs, even on blogs, we rarely see FAQs on blogs. Start creating FAQs on blogs relevant to that particular topic, offshoots of questions. I mean, some of your content sections might be answering a question, but you might recap it. You might answer some of the more basic questions related to that subject. So if we're talking about optimizing your web content for SEO, an FAQ might be, what does optimization mean? What does SEO mean? You know, it might be covering off some of the basic questions. So think about where you can add in FAQs, case studies relevant to that particular topic. You might be producing an article. So, for example, when we go through and produce a blog around optimizing your web content for SEO, we have a couple of case studies that we could put on there. One in particular for a business on Moulton Park, where they had a website that was just all over the shop. We went through and we optimized it. We did keyword research. We optimized all of their content. We could put that in as a case study. And again, it's relevant content. And all you're looking for is to produce more relevant content specific to that topic. And the more kind of relevant and different it is, the better. And splitting it off into those different topics creates a good user experience for the user as well, because they're seeing different things. You know, some users might want to see something that answers their questions right away. Some users might want to read something, you know, more relatable to a client that we've dealt with. So users kind of consume information in different ways. One of the other things you might want to do, which is something I've mentioned on a few lunch and learns, users nowadays are absorbing content or wanting to absorb content quicker. This is why we have short form video. This is why TikTok's taken off. People like to absorb content in 15 seconds, 20 seconds, rather than reading, you know, for 20 minutes an article. So bear that in mind and structure your article or blog. So you've got your H1 text, you've got a paragraph which describes, you know, what that article is going to be about. But above that paragraph, between your H1 text, and you can apply this to every content section. So when you've got another content section with H2 text, and you've got a big paragraph, a couple of paragraphs of content describing that, just above it, have one or two lines in bold that gives a real, to the point description about, you know, basically covering off that content in one or two lines.
Can I add some websites? You know, I don't know if you know the acronym TLDR, too long didn't read. So at the top of web pages, sometimes people will just put a TLDR. You know, it's a summary. It's if you don't want to read the whole thing, TLDR. Here's the summary. It's 2 lines long, and they put that at the top so that then one, it explains exactly what you're getting, like what the article is going to be about, and two, it gives you the answer you need straight away.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's it.
As a heading.
It's
not an H1 heading, obviously.
It all comes down to appreciating the fact that every user is different, and different users are going to want to see different things. One user is going to want to see loads of text. One user is going to want to see it in a video. One user is going to want to see it really concise in one singular line. And it's appealing to all users. But by doing that, and by appealing to all users, you're creating more relevant content again, and satisfying Google. So that's what it comes down to. Other things you could look at, we talked about FAQs, other types of media, really good imagery, videos. You might want to use what are those things called? Like graphics, infographics. There we go. Totally lost it for a second. Case studies I've mentioned, downloadable guides. You know, I always like to think of blogs, news articles, guides as slightly different things. I kind of feel like blogs are more opinion pieces. Articles are, news articles are probably more internally related. Articles themselves might be things like, you know, topic like this. Downloadable guides might be more comprehensive, you know, going to real kind of detail on certain things. So, you know, there's loads of different types of content you can get in there. Another piece would be a testimonial. Get the testimonial to talk directly about the service and include keywords, and that's great. So making sure you cover off that topic in depth is really, really important, as well as optimizing that content in depth. Because if you don't optimize it, if you don't cover off that topic in depth, Google's not going to find it. And also by providing different types of content for the user, you're going to appeal to more users. And again, that's going to make sure you cover that content off in depth. So these, you know, these are two crucial things here. If I just bounce back to the previous one,
It helps with trustworthiness as well. What you mentioned at the beginning, the fundamentals of a high performing site. If your website is full of high quality content around particular subjects in different formats, Google will think that that means you know what you're talking about. Like
And
you're an authority on the subject,
it's not
trustworthy that you can get that content from.
that's a good point. It's not just that, but
No,
also other people will find it and they will link through to it, because one of the things you should be doing on your articles especially, not necessarily on your product service pages, is linking to external high value sources across the web. And that's what other people will do as well. It's good practice. And by making sure that you have covered off, by making sure you have created the best content on the web, other people are going to find it and they're going to link to you. It's that simple. But yeah, make sure you consider the makeup and structure of your page or blog, and make sure you cover your topic off in depth. One final point I'll make on kind of the whole structural thing, and coming back to headers and title text. A lot of people in the past have so for example, in our industry, and this will be relevant to Paul as well, who's in the room, web designer, we have typically put headers and web page titles as web design Northampton, because that's what people search for. And typically that is a key word that people search for, web design Northampton. However, more recently, we have changed our content on our website to naturally speak. Web design Northampton isn't a natural term. It's not. No one speaks web design Northampton. No one says that. People search for things like web design agency in Northampton or web design agency. We change all our titles, and we actually gain space. We're quite high up in the search anyway, but we gain spaces in the search by just changing our titles, changing the structure of our webpage, and do exactly what, you know, we're one of these agencies where we don't necessarily have the time to invest the time into doing what we preach. Same with any company. You know, there's they say about gardeners. I had a gardener, unfortunately he passed away a while back, but we had a gardener, and his gardener was awful. He did great gardens for other people, but his garden was awful. And we're the same. You know, we don't spend enough time on our own stuff. But we went through and did that, and it actually helped gain us spaces in search. So think logically about how you should kind of write your title text and whatnot. Don't just go with web design Northampton or fire and safety company Northampton, because it doesn't necessarily work. Anyway, right. So to finish off, we've got about 10-15 minutes left. That wasn't all supposed to come up there. I was supposed to come up one by one. It's all coming up. Right. I want to give you a guide to writing well-optimized content. This is the process we go through as a company to build content. I'm going to take you through it. So I'm just moving my web chat and whatnot around, just in case anyone says something. The very first thing you should do, and it's an obvious one, is if you're producing content that you want to get found, you need to do your keyword research. That's kind of the fundamental thing. And to go into a bit more detail on this, find yourself a seed keyword, kind of your main keyword. Use that then find relatable and other relevant keywords, and create a cluster of keywords. These might be, if it's an article, it might be short tail and long tail keywords, so questions that are being asked. There's no reason why you can't answer more than one question within that, but find various keywords around a particular topic and find a cluster of those keywords. Number two, find out what questions users are asking around those keywords and around those topics. And they might help you formulate more keywords, more long tail keywords. And that's going to almost formulate the structure of the content you're producing. You might want to use tools like Answer the Public. Blogtopics.net is a good one as well. You might also just want to go on Google and start typing on Google, because it will come up with different search possibilities, let's say. By doing research on other competitor content, it might also help you dig out questions that users are asking, because they've probably done their research as well. Or it might be questions that you think are going to be relevant to the user, but they're not necessarily asking. So it doesn't have to be stuff they're asking, it might be relevant to it. So number one, do your keyword research, find your seed keyword, your key topic almost, get some kind of relatable keywords and create a cluster of keywords. And number 2, find out the questions that users are asking around those keywords. It might help formulate more keywords, but it will help you build the structure of your content, which is number 3. So number 3, build out your structure. Go through what's your H1, what's your H2, what's your H3 text. Build out that structure. Plan your content. It's very difficult going into an article and just writing an article. Really, really difficult just writing an article from scratch if you don't plan it. If you plan it and just break it down into different topics and different sections, all you're doing is producing a paragraph or 2 on a particular section. It's almost like if, can you remember back in the day when, and put in the chat if you remember this, back in the day when Friends was on, and you remember that episode when Chandler was getting married to Monica and he had an absolute meltdown and he disappeared. And Ross went to go and find Chandler and he was basically having a meltdown about the fact that he had all this stuff to do to get married. It was freaking him out. You know, Chandler, you remember, stuff used to freak him out. So what Ross did was he said, right, all we got to do is have a shower. Let's have a shower. That's what we got to do. Now, all you got to do is put a suit on. Just put a suit on. And then it got to a point is, now you've just got to get married. Oh, freak out again. But that's what it is. If you break stuff down, it becomes so much easier to manage that stuff. So build your structure, plan it out. You know, the stuff you've done previously, your keyword research, finding out the questions users have been asking, thinking about what type of content I can put in, whether it's case studies, FAQs, whether it's different media, all of that will help you build your structure. But make sure you build it and it will become so much easier to produce that content. 4th thing, off the back of that structure, cover your topic in depth. We've gone through this. We've talked about different articles, different child pages, FAQs, video, images, case studies, guides, creating better content, making sure you're covering off the questions people are asking. Cover that topic in depth. That's the 4th point. That's when you physically go through and produce that content. And make sure you're utilizing the keywords that you've already produced. Don't keyword flood. Don't just put in web design Northampton. Put stuff in naturally. Put it into your title text. Put it into your alt text. Put it into the 1st, 2nd, 3rd paragraphs of your content. But make sure you cover that topic in depth with eyes on. You always want to be thinking about the fact that your content has to be the best on the web, better than what's already at number 1. And if you can make it better than what's already at number 1, not going to be an instant thing, but over time, you will find that people will link to you and you will appear higher in search. Because like I said, it's all about content, it's all about links. We've got those 4 fundamentals, but if I was to break it into 2, it's content and links. Because once you've got a really good site, once you've got the kind of trustworthy aspect going for you, about content, it's about links. And that will produce both. Add your visuals, add good imagery, make sure it's got your alt text. Good imagery, good video will keep people engaged as well. So it will keep people on the website for longer. Good imagery feeding through to things like socials will get people on your website. And Google does take that into account. Google will see that you've got people on your website and how long they're staying for. And the good visuals do that. Good infographics will keep people on a website because they'll look through them. So exactly what I was doing with an infographic earlier. People will also link through to and utilize those infographics. So again, it provides new links through to your website. So adding visuals is key. Number 6, interlinking. So this is kind of twofold. The most important thing that you can do is link externally to high value articles, websites. So link to them. You can link internally across your site to other articles and other services you might provide, and make sure that the anchor text, so the text that you are linking from to that web page, is relevant to that. So it's keyword specific, let's just say. So for example, we might link the term SEO to our SEO page as an example. Make sure it's keyword specific. But like I said, you want to link to external high value, high ranking articles as well. That will have a benefit. The one thing you can't do much about is people that link into you. But just by providing and creating really good content, people will naturally start to do that. So that's number 6. Number 7, write a compelling title and meta description, plus all the other techie stuff. This comes down to us having structurally a really good blog or article, well optimized. Make sure it's compelling in terms of the title and the meta description, because when people are visiting it on Google, that's the first thing they're going to see before they click through. That's going to make them click through. That is your sales message almost. That's selling the article. Don't sell, but sell the article. Tell them why they need to be there. And make sure all the other techie stuff is in place. And then finally, update it regularly. Some of the best articles, blogs on the internet, the ones that appear high at the search, are old blogs that are just updated regularly. There's one that we saw when we were doing our research for this. It's from 2022, and it's now talking about 24. They update it regularly. And by doing that, it shows Google that you're active and you are keeping it up to date. But you're also keeping it relevant. You're adding new content to it as things change, which again adds to its relevancy and will help it kind of push up in the search. So that's our kind of guide. Now you're welcome to screenshot that if you wanted to. I'll give it a second if you want to screenshot that. But that's the guide I would recommend you guys follow. I'm just going to jump on to now. I did have a little bit here for some reason. My page has stalled. Why is that stalled? Oh, here we go. I did have a bit here about tips and tools, but I've actually gone through quite a few as we've been talking. Some of the stuff that I'd recommend using: blogtopics.net, Answer the Public, Google, Ahrefs, or Ahrefs as some people call it, SEMrush. They will help you do a keyword research. Keyword planning tool. You can just put it into Google and just search for free keyword planning tool. There's loads about, so I won't delve into that too much. But some of the best tips I can give you, as I said, check competitor content, make it better. That's it in a nutshell. What's the other thing? Consider, so your keyword planning tools will give you some key metrics. One of them is keyword difficulty rating. How difficult is it to rank for that keyword on the first page? Consider that versus traffic potential. If you've got something that's got a keyword difficulty of 30 plus with traffic with average traffic of, let's say, 10 to 50, probably not worth looking at. If you've got something that's getting 100 plus search potential and it's 1 to 10 in terms of keyword difficulty, that's where your focus should be. But consider the fact that you're going to have multiple keywords and you're going to kind of, let's say 5 lots of keywords might, have a lot of traffic potential kind of spread across them. So consider that as well. And look at longer tail keywords, tend to be less difficult, easier to rank for, with higher traffic potential, and use more than one of them. When you're producing an article, pick a seed keyword or a topic, and then have everything kind of coming off the back of that, because you can ask loads of questions within that. You're more likely to cover more stuff off in one blog, produce more content in that one article or blog, and get more search traffic because you're answering more questions. So they're tips and tools for you. So that's it. We've finished with 2 minutes to spare. So our next lunch and learn, I feel like I've absolutely flown through that. Our next lunch and learn is going to be about creating best on the web content. So we're going to be delving more so into the content element. We've kind of talked about optimizing it. We talked about some of the different things you can do to create your best on the web content. We're going to delve into that more on our next one. So make sure you stay tuned. 25th of July, you'll get an email about it. And yeah, please sign up. But thank you very much for attending today. Thanks for the questions, Matt. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
And, yeah, we will see you next time. But I'll let you go and grab some lunch.